Darren?
Yes, sorry I'm a few minutes late there. How's your morning
Oh,
going?
that's all right. Not like we're going anywhere.
Exactly. Am I getting you in the Ontario area or are you back in New York?
No, I'm in Toronto.
Got it. And are you forced to be quarantined right now or is it a self-quarantine?
Well, it's not mandatory, but everybody in Canada is kind of not going out anywhere. They've asked us not to go out. And there's no place to really go because most of the businesses are closed except for essential services.
But your many years of living in New York and being around New York, I think that people are more likely to listen out there in Canada than here.
Well, we have the advantage here in Canada of having a nationalized medical system, which enabled us to respond much more quickly. The leaders in Canada, the Prime Minister and everybody, was all over this 2 months ago. So it is much less serious up here, but we do have the breakouts, and my heart is just going out to New York because in my soul, I'm very much a New Yorker. I lived there for 40 years. I lived through 9/11. I lived through the ups and downs in New York, and when I'm seeing what's happening to New York right now, it's just heartbreaking.
Well, that kind of ties in with your new album, Say Something.
Oh, yeah, it came out 2 weeks ago. It's doing very well. We're getting tons of great reviews on it, and it's doing very well because I guess, especially streaming, because I guess people have got nothing to do but sit home and order new records.
Well, did you know outright that you were going to make such a bold album? Some artists, they write 40 songs and they say, let's see which 10 are best. And other people say, well, here's the concept and this is what I'm doing. I'm curious which one you're closer to.
Well, I write a little bit every day. Ideas come up, they pop off the TV, or I go out for a walk or go for a drive and come back with an idea, and I kind of just jot them down. So I had about 25 or more sets of lyrics ready, and then I started calling in my musician friends, 4 of them that I wanted to make the record with, most of whom made my last album with me and play in my road band. And I just started bouncing them off of them and seeing, what struck a chord with them, literally. And as it started to come together, I started to realize that the guys were picking songs that had a theme. And the theme was stuff that's happening right now today. Stuff that we're all a little pissed off about. Somebody said yesterday, hey, the record's doing really well because everybody's sitting home pissed off, and this record is a pissed off record.
Sure.
But no, that theme started to arrive, and then one day somebody said, boy, this record really says something. And there it was. There was the title, and then we zeroed in on that. And then as the songs evolved from that point, we had a focus, and we stuck with it.
And you're one of those artists where the voice is unforgettable and everyone knows it's the voice. But of course, people can be afraid of alienating fan bases because of their politics. Did that ever come to mind?
Oh, I'm at an age where I don't give a shit anymore. I think one of the reviews said that obviously Mr. Clayton-Thomas at his age is completely run out of give a shit.
I suppose that's a compliment, and that means that the people actually paid attention to the lyrics and what you're about.
Well, look, you can't watch TV, you can't see the news for 24 hours and not see the insanity that's going on out there and the things that people need to think about. Everything from kids at the border in cages to, a mass shooting every 4 days. It just goes on, and there's a wealth of material there. And, of course, the current administration provides us with a wealth of material every day.
Well, you were one of the first artists to play at Woodstock. That set from Blood, Sweat, and Tears finally came out in an official form last year. Were you that politically minded back then, or was it more of a, hey, we got a gig, let's do this big gig?
No, Well, we were a New York band. We came right out of Greenwich Village, and Greenwich Village is the epicenter of it's a political hotbed. And, and in those years, of course, with the Vietnam War and the protests and there was a revolution going on in America, and it was coming out of Greenwich Village, and we were right in the middle of it. So yes, it's natural that some of that attitude started to seep into the music. But I was into that years and years earlier when I first heard Dylan. And I heard Dylan songs that were actually written about what was happening today and now. And in many ways, he was so influential, not only to a generation, but to young songwriters like myself coming up. Just the way he wrote, the way he put his words together, and the way he attacked issues. I think it made a lasting imprint on me.
I can imagine. And a part of your career that really intrigues me that people don't usually talk about if they're New Yorkers or Americans is the phase of your career after you left Blood, Sweat, and Tears where you hosted a talk show where you were basically traveling around and jamming. That format of a show is done these days by Sammy Hagar and lots of different people. Have you ever thought about doing that kind of show these days on some kind of a podcast network or a TV network?
You know, I'm seeing it right now. I just watching my computer all day. All the musicians, they're all frustrated because everybody's out of work. All the concerts have been canceled. We had 2 concerts just last week that were canceled to coincide with the release of the album, and a radio broadcast and a launch party. No, everything's been canceled, so a lot of musicians are going home and just doing virtual concerts by themselves in their living room on TV, on their computers. I haven't done that yet. I might, if I get bored enough.
But what's keeping your time besides having to do all this press? Because we all know that Eric Alper is a great publicist.
Well, Eric has got me extremely busy today. He's got me going from 10:15 in the morning with you right through till 6 o'clock at night. I have 8 phoners to do between then and now. So he's keeping me busy today, but it's okay. You know, I really got nowhere to go anyway. I was laughing with a friend of mine yesterday. I got a brand new car sitting in the garage, and I haven't taken it out for a week. You know, not that I wouldn't just go out for a drive, but there's no place to go. You like to have a destination in mind. You know, I'm going to this club or I'm going to this store or whatnot. Now, everything's closed up out there. So Toronto's really in lockdown and has been for some time.
And then this is intended to fully be a compliment. Your speaking voice and your singing voice, both totally preserved these days. Is there a lot of care that goes into it, or is it more genetics in your case that you're still performing at such a high level?
Just a fluke, and I think the fact that I got off the road with Blood, Sweat, and Tears, which was, 200 concerts a year around the world, has probably given my voice a little longevity.
So it's not 2 hours of vocal warm-ups or anything like that before you get on stage?
No, not really. Not really. I don't smoke. I rarely drink. So I live a pretty good life, a pretty clean life. I think that has a lot to do with it. But also the punishment. I mean, one of the main reasons I split from the band in 1972 was that these guys were doing 250, 275 concerts a year all around the world. Now, if the trumpet player blows his lip out, well, they just send in a sub for 3 or 4 nights, But the lead singer can't be subbed. And I would literally go to the airport some morning and everybody in the band knew, don't talk to him until 3 o'clock this afternoon, because he can't talk. My voice was just blown out. And in those years, we were playing arenas, big 20,000-seat Madison Square Garden type places with no stage monitors. We certainly didn't have the ear monitors that we had, the in-ear monitors that we have today. So it was very, very punishing.
All this said because you just mentioned playing the Garden, and I mentioned you playing Woodstock, and you have the autobiography, and you're still doing it at a high level. Is there anything you haven't yet accomplished that you still hope to as a musician? I'm just glad to be able to continue to do it. I've been managing since I left Blood, Sweat, and Tears, which was 2005. I've managed to put out a new album every year. And an album, while it only takes a week or two in the studio to cut, it is a year of preparation and writing and arranging and conceptualizing goes into it. So the fact that I've managed to put out an album every year and a half for the last 12, 15 years is
very rewarding. And I think I'll take advantage of this lockdown that we're in right now. I've already started to write some new material. So for the next album, it's always the next album. You know, that's what you're thinking about. People say, "What's your best album ever?" And I always say, "The next one."
And any inkling or hint that you can give us, is the next album going to be politically charged, or is that too early to know?
Well, there's always been politics in my music. You know, I always had some kind of, I won't say politics as much as social commentary. It's been there right from the very beginning, and if people go back through the albums, you'll find one or two tunes. This is probably the first time I've sat down and written a whole album that is absolutely supercharged with what's going on in 2021 here, 2020, maybe 2021 too.
Maybe 21, maybe 22. Either way, David.
I hope I'm out of the house by 2021.
Yeah, we can only hope so. So
I think that's the big frustration right now, is that this lockdown has no end. If they said, okay, we're going to take 3 weeks and you can't come out of the house, okay, I can deal with that. There's no end to this.
Well, in one way or another, hope you're back on the road soon, because we'd love to see you here in New York. So in closing, because you have 7 or 8 more phoners to do today, any last words for the kids?
Yeah, if you're thinking going into music, go into real estate. No, I'm just kidding. It's a wonderful. My heart goes out to the young musicians today, because their recording income has been Spotified away from them. The streaming services are paying them no money, so the idea of making a living by recording is gone. And now all of the live venues have shut down, so they can't even go out and play. So the young kids coming up, you know, I made my career, I made my fortune years and years ago. I'm comfortable. I can ride this out. But the young musicians coming up, and these are guys that have got master's degrees in music, you know, from the great universities up here, and they're basically either online, or they're out busking on the street. Here's a guy with a master's degree sitting out on the street with a basket, hoping for coins. It's a sad situation. It really is. Musicians are in really bad shape today, and I hope the music recovers from it.
Well, agreed on all ends there. I mean, you did have to start off with the basket parties and all that, but glad you were able to see it through decades later, of course.
Well, I did that back in the 60s when there was a recording industry, and remember, people actually bought records, and the record companies actually paid the songwriters and the artists for their records. That's gone, man. It's over. They're not paying anybody anymore, and people were totally reliant on their live gigs, and now those live gigs have been knocked out from underneath them.